Welcome and a hearty welcome. Thank you for coming and for showing support for real democracy here in New Zealand. Now, Pope Francis recently said that no action is too small. So by joining us today, all of our each individual small actions have become a major action and will make a major impression on the people of New Zealand. Now, we're here today to stop the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which has the potential to destroy our economy, our environment, our health services, our education. It will reduce income and working opportunities and conditions for employees from all walks of life, and it will significantly increase the inequality in our country by expanding the rich-poor gap as taxes and services to the general population is transferred to rich overseas corporations. We are here today to demand effective and real action on climate from our government instead of the greenwashing that we've been getting. After 14 straight months of rising world temperatures, each month setting new world records, this year we will probably reach the 1.5 degrees above 1850 temperatures, which was the limit set at the Paris climate talks. We're here today because our government refuses to take action on our desperate housing crises, which is causing thousands of people to live outdoors, in cars, or in extremely crowded conditions. We're here today because our current government policies have created an environment for rapidly rising corporate greed. All over the country today, there are marches and rallies to demand positive and effective action from our government and from the other parties, the opposition parties, to make sure that the TPPA is not ratified and is not allowed to proceed. We're here today because we know the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. We're here today because we're activists and we want change and we demand change. We demand change from our government. And now, I want to present to you New Zealand's most famous activist, a man who has been fighting injustices all his life, the man who has proven that it's through our voices and our actions that we get the changes that we need. Please welcome John Minto.
Kia ora koutou, ki tēnei rā ātāhua, tēnā koe. Ngā tangata whenua o tēnei rohi, kia ora koutou, e ngā hoe whā, ngā iwi o te motu, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Greetings everybody, and thank you all for coming here today. This is a really important event. It's an important event about the TPPA, but it's a more important event about democracy and about the people's voice. So this is the best place to be in Christchurch today on this marvellous day. Let's give ourselves a huge round of applause. Come on, people. And the reason it's important is if you look at history, there is no big political changes that have come about without activism on the ground. If we didn't have activists, we would still have entrenched racism in South Africa. If we didn't have activism, we would have nuclear warships in our harbours now. If we didn't have activism, we'd have GE right through the country. All of these things, all of these changes that have been promoted by the powers that be on behalf of the corporates, those changes that we have insisted happen through activism. And I want to say that the most important thing that I'm going to say today is this. Politicians do not lead change. They never lead change. Politicians react to public opinion. And once public opinion has changed, then the politicians jump up and pretend that they led it all the way through. I've seen that all my life, and so have we all. So despite the t-shirt I'm wearing today, the most important role for activists is out in the community, turning up with their personal presence on days like today. So it's not enough to give a Facebook click to something. There is nothing that matches your personal presence at a protest like this really important day today. So I just want to say a huge thank you to the organisers for giving us this opportunity to be active today on a critically important issue. and I want us to think ahead. Yeah, well, let's have a round of applause for the organisers. Kia ora. And so when if we look at the issues that are coming up, we look at the TPP, which we're on about today as the focus for the protest. If we look at climate change, this enormous issue of climate change, which was so eloquently sung about before, we're talking about the future of our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. This is the issue, a huge issue for them, and we cannot leave them a legacy that has been of an environment pillaged by capitalism. We can't do that. And in November in Wellington, there is a weapons conference on. You know, New Zealand is involved in helping to sell and export and trade in weapons of mass destruction around the world. New Zealand's got to stop doing that. That's what the capitalists want, it's not what the people want. So mobilising around all of these issues is critically important. So thank you very much for listening. Kia ora koutou.
When at university here in Christchurch, Siana Fitzjohn started Oil-Free Otatahi to protest deep-sea oil drilling off the coast. And now she's been a key player in the 350 organization here in Christchurch and nationally. Now she's down in Dunedin doing her master's degree. Siana is the Greenpeace warrior, and she was arrested for holding the oil exploration boat Tangaroa in Wellington Harbour last year. Siana has inspired many of us here, including myself, to fight for the climate. Please welcome Siana Fitzjohn.
Kia ora everybody, my name's Siana Fitzjohn, and I'll be ruffling through my papers a bit because I just wrote this speech about 10 minutes ago, so in classic Siana style. But I'm really stoked to be back in Christchurch. This is where I kind of cut my teeth with activism. And it's interesting, I have to say my feelings about climate activism have definitely changed a lot in the past year. I think a year ago I would have stood up here and talked about the rising CO2 in the atmosphere, the hypocrisy of our government and all of New Zealand's opportunities to embrace a green future. But that's all changed. I think I was communicating very poorly previously about the climate movement. So I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, Ants, one of the other 350 crew, and I snuck into a talk being run by Bathurst Resources CEO. And so that's a coal mining company. And he was giving a talk to the engineers of Canterbury, all about the wonders of coal and, you know, how we can expand its use in the South Island. And we stood up at question time and we started talking about climate change and how socially irresponsible they were being because of their coal contributions that coal was making to emissions. So the facilitator at the end of the event stood up and he said, right, we've heard the emotional argument from this side of the room, pointing to us, and we've heard the rational economic argument from the other side of the room, pointing to the CEO of Bathurst Resources. Now, a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that he was an old white man and I was a young woman, but that aside, my reaction to that comment was to say, no, my reaction isn't emotional, it's grounded in science. There were scientific reasons that we couldn't afford to use any more coal. And I basically said, we can't afford to burn 80% of the coal reserves we know about because of climate change, yada, 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 provided all of these very rational, very legitimate reasons. And I thought that grounding my position in science made me more legitimate, more rational, and more correct. But actually, I missed the point entirely, because what I should have said was that when we talk about climate change, we're talking about human lives and we're talking about human suffering. And an emotional reaction to that is completely and utterly appropriate. So, yeah, I let this man invalidate my own emotional reaction to climate change. And in doing so, I missed the opportunity to raise the consciousness of that discussion. And that's what our media and politicians do all the time. They keep us emotionally insulated from the impacts of our behaviour. So we've let climate change become a story of rising CO2 levels in the atmosphere, when it's just as much a story of inequality, exploitation and colonisation. So we've got people like Leonardo DiCaprio standing up at the Oscars and saying, you know, climate change is real and it's happening now, as if that's somehow a radical and, you know, progressive thing to say, when actually it just demonstrates how simplistic our conversation about climate change has been. We've been talking about the reality of climate change or the scientific unreality of climate change, instead of acknowledging that actually climate change is going to be experienced differently by every single different living being on the planet. So for me, the reality of climate change is being able to go skinny dipping in Dunedin on the winter solstice in the sea. But for some people, the reality of climate change is going to feel like dehydration or starvation. So that reality of climate change is not experienced equally, and I think we need to remember that. So to me, the scariest thing about climate change isn't the fact that one species has managed to alter the composition of our entire atmosphere. It's that we know our behaviour is killing people and we still haven't managed to change that. So I think that's because we've been raising people's intellectual understanding of climate change, but we haven't been raising their emotional understanding of climate change. So I used to take a very scientific approach to activism because I wanted to appear rational and correct and all of those things. But suddenly I realised how emotionally insulated I was from the reality of it, because I was distant from people's desperate struggles, and I was distant from the people being shot for their dissent, and that's all because I prioritised my intellectual understanding of the issue. And science is one way that we build conviction about reality, but I think sometimes it distracts us from deeper moral convictions about humanity. And many of those people who can pursue those moral convictions end up with a few convictions of the legal sort. So I've always been a very big believer in civil disobedience, and so much so that I decided to write my thesis on it, which was a ridiculous idea. I don't know who let me do that. But basically, civil disobedience is when you break a law deliberately to draw attention to lawful injustice. And I think it's really powerful because non-violent direct action, I feel, is what is the opposite to what we do on a daily basis, which is violent indirect action, which I'd like to say is like slow violence. Because our system as it's working now is incredibly violent. Acts to explore for more fossil fuels or to ensure that we keep on using fossil fuels are acts of violence against humanity, and we should start understanding them as such. So back in November, when we boarded the Tangaroa to stop it from doing oil exploration work for fossil fuel companies, it was a massive learning curve for me because it was my first act of civil disobedience, and I had to use a shiwi for the first time. If any ladies out there have used shiwis, it's actually a lot more logistically difficult than I anticipated, and you have to stop midstream, and it's all sorts of fun. So that was one big learning curve, and the other was just seeing how the media treated us, I think. Like, because often the focus when you do civil disobedience, they'll focus on your action as opposed to the moral incentives for your action. So I was really chomping at the bit to get into a nice scientific, intellectual debate about climate change and about the impacts of that. And finally, I got a radio show host who kind of gave me an opening, and he said, oh, well, climate change, you know, Tesla's invented electric cars, so isn't it all sorted now? I mean, who let this clown talk on national radio? It was absurd. But, you know, like, I found that I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that, being able to rigorously debate the issue. But actually, that I don't think that helped at all. It just became an intellectual back and forth about the degree to which we were screwing the planet over. It didn't raise the consciousness of the discussion at all. So my thinking about the act of civil disobedience has definitely changed. I'm starting to explore what I feel is a deeper understanding of the issue, because it's not just about breaking those external laws. It's about actively disobeying those internalized social norms, because we've grown up in a system that's incredibly racist, sexist, ageist, ableist, all other kinds of prejudice that I'm probably not aware of. So for me, civil disobedience became about disobeying those intellectually conditioned responses and disobeying all those subtle social laws that keep the depths of our emotions unavailable to us. So more and more, I've been finding that the English language is very objectifying of nature. It separates the living from the non-living, and our words sever objects and species from consciousness. They lead us to imagine a very objectified world. So we need to think about the way language shapes our reality and how we can change our language to raise the consciousness of people, to change our behaviour. So if I've learned anything so far, it's that our language and our emotional literacy are vastly inadequate for describing the depths of feelings that humans are actually capable of. So if we really want to change the system, and judging from all your faces, I'd say we do, then we really need to disobey those conditioned power structures that are present within our own minds that hold us back from a more empathetic and mindful existence with the rest of the species that we share the planet with. Kia ora everyone, enjoy the march. Thank you so much to all of the organisers. Have a great time and we'll see you soon. Kia ora.
She was awarded a medal for bravery for nursing on the front lines of the Christchurch February earthquake. She's worked in third world communities setting up clinics for Indigenous women. She's got an international reputation for her activism against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Please welcome New Zealand's favorite activist, Josie Butler.
Kia ora whānau, ko te roroa te maunga, ko hokio te awa, ko kura hopo te waka, ko mō upoko te iwi, ko Ngāti Tamarangi te hapu, ko Josie Butler tōku ingoa. Hey everyone, I'm Josie. I'm a registered nurse. I'm one of the organisers of It's Our Future Christchurch, and you may also remember me from the Waitangi Day Stephen Joyce incident. Thank you. I just want to start off by saying it's so good to see so many beautiful people here today, uniting together to stand up for what's right. So let's start off by giving you guys a round of applause. Good job, team. I see we've got the Labour Party here today. Do you guys know what the Labour Party and the Australian rugby team have in common? They're both a very weak opposition. Labour, your stand on TPP, your stand on climate change, and your stand on anything really that matters to New Zealand reminds me of my respect for John Key. They're both non-existent. And to be honest, Labour, if you dropped any of your policies here today, you'd be fined for littering, because currently they are bloody rubbish. For 3 years, hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders have been screaming, TPPA, no way. But Labour's come back with TPPA, maybe in a revised version, if we can work out the finer details. You're meant to be our voice, and that's not what we've been saying. So Christchurch, we've got a unique opportunity today to remind Labour what our thoughts are on the TPPA. So let me ask you, TPPA? No way! TPPA? No way! TPPA? No way! Did you hear us that time, Labour? Maybe now you can go and do your bloody job properly. I also hear we may have Nick Karako, National MP, here somewhere. Do you guys know what the National Party and a cactus have in common? They're both full of pricks. But jokes aside, what we're about to achieve today is actually a really big deal. Nowhere else in the world could we take over the entire main street of a city and not face police prosecution, tear gas, police brutality, and maybe even death, particularly for our brown brothers and sisters. Nowhere else in the world could we storm an entire mall and not only have the freedom to do so, but actually have some of the police marching alongside us today. Darren, Tracy, Owen, Chris, our local police officers, where are you guys? Thanks for being here. So today we march. We march for ourselves. We march for our country, and we march for our brothers and sisters around the world who are not entitled to such freedom of speech. So let me ask you, Christchurch, are you ready to take over the main street of this fine city? Yeah! I can't hear you. I said, are you ready? Yeah! Are you ready to storm Whakatipu and have your voices heard? Yeah! Are you ready to fight for this democracy? Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey buddy, how are you?
There was a dog, a corporate dog, who did a log and took 10 years to do it. And on the back of that dog was a great big flea. And the name of the flea was Johnny Key. And he jumped off the dog and he said to me, "Hey boys, let's call it the TPP. Now the people won't know that we're feeding them shit, because we'll roll it in glitter. It'll be a big hit. We'll write a report and talk it all up and go on a roadshow to increase our luck. So it's chocky log for afternoon tea. It's chocky log for you and me. It's the greatest trade deal you'll ever see. The TPP will set us free." But the people weren't dumb, no. The people were smart. They knew it stunk like a big dog's fart. 6,147 pages. I don't think it'll raise my wages. Can't stop foreigners buying our land. Medicine prices are getting out of hand. And now they want to sue our government too. What on earth can the people do? Well, we'll banish that log and that dog and that flea and we'll send them back to Hawaii. For united we stand. United we're strong. We fight this thing hard and we fight this thing long. And the words of Bowie still ring true. For we all can be heroes, if just for one day, when we smash this agreement and throw it away. And now it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce Rachel and their beautiful children, who's going to tell us about this historic Hikoi that's coming up. Rachel Thomas.
Ko Tema, ko Pita e nei, ko Rachel aho. Hea ha te mea nui o te au. What is the most important thing in the world? He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It is the people. Congratulations to all you people for being here today. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here to share this. The feeling of unity and strength is abundant every time. I have been involved in It's Our Future Christchurch for the last 4 marches, been to 5 against the TPP. I am the mother of 3 beautiful children. 2 of them have happily chosen to be up here with me. I would describe speaking to you right now particularly challenging for me. Being on stage is not for me. Yet I'm finding myself confronting these fears more regularly, all because of my involvement with the TPP. Earlier this year, I spoke to my submission to the Select Committee regarding the TPP, distressing the dismay people are feeling, which brings me to why I'm sharing my story. I am planning to walk to Wellington with my children and the support of my partner Justin, It's Our Future Christchurch, and friends. There appears to be this unconscious drive guiding me further out of my comfort zone, but down a compelling journey following my compassion. This walk will be called Our Children's Future Hikoi. Hikoi mā ngā uri Whakatipu. My hope is to ignite a spark of compassion and discussion with communities we travel through, and raise awareness to the issues and implications this could have for future generations. So yep, we're going to walk to Wellington starting October the 15th. We'll finish in Wellington on Guy Fawkes weekend, which is also the anniversary of Parihaka. The plan is to walk approximately 20 kilometres per day for 20 days. I'm not taking this lightly. I foresee many challenges for everyone involved. And why? Because I strongly believe we need to nurture the seeds sown, continue the path carved by past and present voices. Because those past and present voices have inspired me, their voices and actions. And just to mention a few, Tom Poata and others in Aotearoa activism who dedicated decades to protect against racism and greed from all Māori and human rights in New Zealand and around the world. Jane Kelsey and her team who have tirelessly kept us informed about the TPP and its dangers. And the recent efforts by the community of Taranaki, who 500 strong in June marched from New Plymouth to Parihaka for peace.
Yeah.
However, on a personal level, I've been touched by those of you who have stopped to talk and thank me as we're on the streets and local markets as I offer a flyer about the anti-TPP events. And completely out of the blue, I met an Oamaru woman just last weekend. She listened to my story, she went home, and by Monday had organised and listed a TPP march for today, first event to be held in Oamaru. And last but not least, of course, all my tireless friends and people of It's Our Future Christchurch who gift and sacrifice many hours to raise public awareness against the TPP. You know, I want my children to observe that it is okay to say what is right or wrong. I want them to eat kai moana for the rest of their lives, to feed and nourish their tinana like their ancestors did. It's not just our future, it is their future. J.F. Kennedy said, "Children are the living messages we send to a time we will not see." We will launch the Hikoi on October 15th from Cathedral Square. We would like to invite you to join us on the first leg to Kaiapoi or for a farewell party and picture. Please, if you have any questions, ideas or possible offerings to contribute, leave your details with the It's Our Future team back there, or look out for the event page, Facebook event page. Now I'm going to hand you over to my daughters Tema and Pita, and breathe. Mā te wā, ngā mihi koutou.
We've been to lots of marches and meetings against the TPP, and now I've decided to take part in a Hikoi to show how important this is for me. To unite, to be strong and clear about what we need, to retain the power of the people and don't let them suffer from the big corporations' greed. To walk from Christchurch to Wellington is a big quest indeed. We will be walking through all sorts of conditions, but we won't give up on our mission. Kia ora, my name is Pita and I'm 9 years old. I have come from a rugby game to support my mum for this. Now we are going to walk to Wellington like my mum and my sister have said, and I'm looking forward to it. Now I'm going to sing a song called Manu Tiria. Manu Tiria, Manu Erohia, ki te poho o te raka katou, re 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 katou mai te ruhi e tau e koia, koia.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you Jessica Reeves, who is part of the Orange Group here, the Fossil Fuels UC Brigade, which are trying to get fossil fuels investment by universities disinvested. They are part of a group of now 17 in universities, and all these sorts of groups are starting up and gaining momentum. So it's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Jessica Reeves. Thank you.
Thank you. When I was growing up, every summer, my family and I would go on holiday and stay at my grandpa's place up in Northland. It's a beautiful, lush valley of native New Zealand bush with a river running through it. I've never lived there, but every single time I drive up that gravel driveway and the river comes into view, I get that lump in my throat because it feels like I'm finally home. There's a real community of old hippies up there. They have huge veggie patches with corn and potatoes, herbs and lettuces. They've got cows grazing, chickens. They run off solar and hydro. What we might call sustainable living. Sometimes it's tempting for me to go off grid like they have. You can really hide away from the problems of the world up there, and it kind of feels like you're doing your part. At the beginning of 2014, I moved to Auckland for my first real-life grown-ups job. I was actually working for Graham Hart, who's the richest man in New Zealand. He's basically the embodiment of capitalism in this country. He's the person who sort of started this trend where you'd buy huge amounts of forest, fell it all, turn it into a dairy farm, and sell it on for a profit. So boo, 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 boo. I absolutely hated that job, but there was actually some good to come out of it. Having that space away from university gave me the space that I needed and time to educate myself on the issues in the world and learn about what I actually valued, community and justice. While I was working that job, I had a growing unrest. I would buy local produce, I'd walk to work, I didn't have a car, I'd make my own cleaning products, and all these little things just felt so small compared to the problems that we're facing. Not to mention the devastating impact I was contributing to in my day-to-day work. Along with this unrest was a growing sense of obligation, an obligation to do something. I'm a white, intelligent, very capable young New Zealander, which is a whole lot of privilege. If I wasn't going to do something about the injustices in the world, who was? So I started to attend marches, rallies, I'd go to actions, I donated to the Green Party and became a member. I wanted to do my bit. So I definitely started to feel like I was a part of something, but I felt like I could do more. I was exposed to the activists who were organising these sorts of events, but I felt really disconnected between what I was doing and what they were doing. I was showing up once every 3 months or so, being a body on the ground and then going home, but I had so much capacity to do more. I just didn't know how to become one of those people, the people who were really making a difference. I moved back to Christchurch at the beginning of this year to finish off my degree. On Clubs Day, I signed up to every eco club, as we all do, intending to go to all the meetings and the events, but life always manages to get in the way. However, I did manage to make it to one random fossil-free UC meeting. Here I saw an opportunity to be a part of something that was really tangible. Our goal is to make the University of Canterbury divest from the fossil fuel industry. I was in. Yeah, woo! During the mid-year break, I was also given the amazing opportunity to be a part of the Fossil Free Fellowship. With this, I would meet other students from other universities also running their own fossil-free campaigns across Australia and New Zealand. I've been receiving training and coaching to build the campaign. This meant moving into a leadership role and taking on a huge responsibility of rebuilding our vision on campus. It was a huge commitment of time, energy, and general brain space. I'd only just got back into the swing of things at uni, and I was very apprehensive. But this was the opportunity that I'd been waiting for, to become one of those people, the people who are making a difference. What really hits home for me at events like this is the huge number of passionate people there are, like yourselves, like I was, who are ready and willing to give more. We all see these small, sustainable actions, riding your bike instead of taking the car, having a metal drink bottle, but we know that they're not enough. Yes, they're important, but look at what we're up against. Profit is being prioritised over people. Decisions are being made concerning our future, which are not in our best interests. The system, whether by design or default, makes us feel powerless. The overwhelming number of issues to come from the Tppa make us feel powerless. And as individuals, we are powerless. Now more than ever, there is a real need for communities to connect and organise. We can't keep viewing democracy as something we do every 3 years when we show up and tick a box. Democracy is something that we need to do every single day by speaking out and acting out for what we believe in. Yeah. So today, I have a challenge for you. If you feel like you have more to give, if you're tired of feeling powerless and disconnected, then it is time to act. Grassroots movements are providing a space to connect and a collective voice. With enough voices, we do have the power to make change. Through Fossil Free UC, I've learned that activism always needs more passionate people with the capacity to give whatever they can. There are a ton of incredible grassroots groups here today. Whether it's Fossil Free UC, It's Our Future, 350.org, this is the perfect opportunity to talk to someone in a movement and ask what they're about. Get involved. So find yourself a group, get involved, and get empowered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That's fantastic to see all these groups starting to get going. It's not just one or two groups, it's happening everywhere all the time, and this is going to build magnificently. Jen, who is our inspiration, who started it off nearly 3 years ago, our Joan of Arc of the South herself, has come to talk about the future. Let's hear it for Jen Dismar.
Hello everyone, thank you for hanging around. I don't think I'm going to probably live up to that fantastic introduction. However, I'll give it a go. Hey look, when you march on the streets, you nail your colours to the wall. When you march on the streets, you show solidarity with others who feel the same way that you do. And when you march on the streets, you show your hope and commitment to change. Whatever happens with the Trans-Pacific Partnership in the US, the real target of these marches is unrestrained corporate greed. The TPP is simply a symptom and a symbol of unrestrained corporate greed. But even if the TPP falls down, we won't have killed the virus. And there are other fraudulent free trade agreements in the wings, like TISA, the Trade and Services Agreement. Trade and Services is a euphemism which means privatisation of services, things like water or health or education or roads, anything that humans are interested in. Is there any economic reason for privatisation? Not that anyone has ever shown, but there is a very good political reason for privatisation. Because if you privatise something, it's out of the public control. So that reduces the threat of democracy by definition. And while the TPP is the illustration of corporate greed, climate change is its manifestation. And undrinkable water, and poverty, inequality, housing crises, financial crises, and war. It's important to connect the dots between neoliberal policies and these 21st century challenges, because to tackle them, particularly climate change, we first need to tackle corporate power and protect democracy. But every element of the neoliberal package is intended to undermine democracy very explicitly. And the neoliberal story that we've been sold about economic growth just doesn't add up. Just look, GDP has risen 40 times in my lifetime, from $5 billion to $200 billion, but we're all not 40 times better off. And in fact, there's worse poverty now in New Zealand than there was back then. You didn't trip over homeless people on the streets when I was a kid. So here's a new story. Look around you. People all over the world are coming together to change the system to one that sees intrinsic value in humanity and nature, and we say we want system change, not climate change. In February, the TPP was officially signed, and in March the government rolled out the roadshow to sell it. We went, and inside it was like banging your head against a brick wall. But outside, in Latimer Square, there was this beautiful protest happening with music and tooting and barbecue and beautiful people having fun and enjoying each other's company and raising awareness and consciousness. That same month, many of you had written submissions, and a couple of weeks after the roadshow, 30 of the people in this crowd bravely engaged in the daunting and nerve-wracking experience of formally presenting to the Select Committee. When you look at the weight of what we're up against, those totalitarian corporations with all their mega billions of resources and control, and tiny us with a couple of second-hand margarine containers with holes in the lids for donations, I mean, you'd have to think we were crazy, right? That's all of us. So why are we all here today? I think it's because we know that another world is possible. It's because even though we see the stupidity of neoliberal capitalism, we also see an awakening consciousness happening all around us. We see people talking about different ways of doing things, new economic systems, energy democracy, and public banking. People who are growing food in ways that feed the land and produce clean water. People are realising that the 21st century is a different place, and spaces are opening up where new ideas are flowing. People are openly questioning the economic model and asking, does it really serve us, or what could serve us better? We believe in our potential to create a world in which we can all thrive. More and more people, both here and all over the world, are uniting, and the sheer weight of numbers is causing chinks in the armour of neoliberal capitalist forces. Europe has abandoned TTIP, the sister agreement. And if they can do it, so can we. Rachel and her tamariki are starting our Children's Future Hikoi to Wellington next month, which will fire imaginations and ignite conversations. What is our children's future going to look like? And how much do we care? We're going to keep the conversation at the forefront of New Zealanders' minds for the whole month, awakening consciousness and raising awareness. And you can help us. You all have different things that you're good at and different ways in which you might be able to help. Could be as simple as making a phone call to a friend who lives between here and Picton and persuading them to billet Rach and kids for the night. Maybe you're keen to take part yourself, to walk for a little bit, or to help organise, cook or drive. Perhaps you don't have much time, but you could sponsor the Hikoi in some way. Food, shoes, wet weather gear, or scooters for the kids. You know what you're good at and how what you do can add value to the mission, because it will. So let us know. Thank you for coming out today. When you show your hope and commitment for change, when you show solidarity with others, and when you nail your colours to the wall, the world changes. We will keep building the pressure in New Zealand so that the next government next year will abandon the TPP. The world cannot sustain unrestrained corporate greed, but there is unlimited scope for a much better future. Thank you, and thank you to the It's Our Future team, and particularly to Leanne, who is the real driver behind all of this stuff happening. Never underestimate what a small, committed bunch of people can achieve. Thank you.